All right. Someone has told me that tonight was our last class.
有人告诉我今天晚上是我们最后一堂课了。
I didn't know that.
我不知道。
I thought these classes went on forever.
我原以为我们这课会一直继续下去呢。
Because the classes have gone on forever for me.
因为我自己是这个课对我来说一直是持续的。
I've been studying astrology for 44 years.
我学占星学学了44年了。
And I learn something new every week.
我每周都会学到一点新东西。
Most of the time, learning is really relearning.
很多时候学习实际上就是再学习。Oh, let's say my voice is not. Maybe when you move
just yeah, either that or you can move closer to me.
I cannot.
Sure you can.
Okay.
There we are. All right. Okay. The point I want to make is that relearning means rediscovering new meaning to the same language.
那我的意思是，再学习呢，实际上是对于这个同样的语言发现新的意义。
All right. What's that? For example, one of the things that you've learned in this course, which I think is the most important thing, is that you have learned 12 signs.
比如说，我们在这堂课上学到的一点，而且也是我认为最重要的一点，就是我们学了12星座。
Some of you may feel like, well, like someone who's learning to play piano, and you've learned 12 notes on the piano, and you're thinking, why can't I play Beethoven?
那有些人会想，这就有点像弹钢琴。那么我们学到了钢琴上的12个键、12个音符，那么你可能就会想，哎，为什么我现在还不能再弹那个贝多芬的交响乐呢？
I've learned these 12 notes. I should be able to sit down and just bang out Rachmaninoff.
那么我已经学会了这12个音符，我就应该能坐下来，然后弹个叮叮咚咚。
Yeah. But it takes a little time.
但实际上这需要花费一点时间的。
However, you may know more than you realize you do.
但实际上呢，你们已经可能学到的比你们意识到的更多了。
What I find about astrology is that at first it seems simple, then it becomes complicated, then it seems impossible, and then it all starts to make sense again.
那么我对占星学是这样看的，刚开始看起来占星学很容易，然后呢，你会觉得占星学很难学，然后呢，你会觉得你永远不太可能学会占星学，然后突然好像就一切好像你都能去能够明白了，都有意义了。
Now, in some ways, the signs, the planets, and the houses, and you haven't gotten to aspects yet, are different ways of saying the same thing.
从某种角度说，星座、行星、宫位，你们现在还没有学到相位，实际上从某种角度来说，他们都在说着同样的东西。
Just like when you're looking at music and you have 12 notes, 12 different notes, but they can be arranged so many different ways on the sheet music.
那么就像你们学音乐的时候，也只有12个音符，但是这12个音符可以有各种各样的组合，那么它们就在乐谱上能够有各种各样的呈现。
Every time you see Mars, every time you see the first house, think Aries.
每当你看到火星，每当你看到一宫，你都要去想白羊座。
Even though technically they are different things, they will resonate, they will sound and feel very similar.
即便在技术上它们是不同的东西，但是它们的声音和它们的感觉都是相似的。
Every time you see the second house or Venus, think Taurus.
每当你看到2宫或者金星，你都要去想金牛座，
Or the third house and Mercury, think Gemini.
或者是第3宫，你想双子座、水星。
And this is true all the way around the zodiac.
那么黄道12宫都是如此。
And you'll learn in the EAC course, which starts at the end of this month, on the 30th, you will learn about aspects.
那么，我们本月末呢，在我们的中阶课上，我们去学相位。
Just like there are 4 tones, well, basically 5, but 4 tones in the Chinese language, in Mandarin.
就像中国话里面的4声一样。
There are really 4 divisions of the alphabet of astrology, or alphabet of the zodiac.
实际上，黄道就是由4个部分来组成的。
And those are signs, planets, houses, and aspects.
那就是星座、宫位、行星、相位。
Now, the difference, though, is that in Chinese, when you have a different tone, it completely changes the meaning.
那么它们的不同在于，就像在中文的4声一样，当你的声调不同的时候，完全会把意义改变。
To me, Chinese is much more complicated than astrology.
对我而言，中文比占星学复杂多了。
Because if I say shui, that's water. If I say shui, it's sleep or sleepy, right?
比如说我说水，我知道那是英文的 water， 但是我如果说睡的话呢，我知道那是英文的 sleep。
These are very different things, water and sleep.
那么水和睡是2个完全不同的东西。
Even though the sound of water may make you sleepy.
虽然说水声可能会让你感觉到瞌睡。
But we know when we see Mars or the first house that we can think Aries.
我们知道，如果我们看到火星或者第一宫，我们可以去想白羊座。
Or if we see Pluto in the 8th house, we can think Scorpio.
或者是我们看到了冥王星或第8宫，我们可以去想天蝎座。
Just remembering this will make the process of learning how to put all this together more simple.
只要你记得这一点，就会让你们组合的这个过程变得更加简单。
Now, I'm teaching this class tonight, the last in this course, very jet lagged.
那么我今天在讲这堂课，实际上我现在还是就是说还在倒时差。
I just got in late last night.
因为我是昨晚很晚才到。
But let me tell you, I wouldn't miss this class for anything.
但是让我告诉你们吧，我也不会错过这堂课的。
Because the last class is kind of like the first class, except better.
那么因为最后一堂课就像第一堂课一样，不过只是会比第一堂课更好。
Because we get a chance to congratulate ourselves on what we have learned.
因为我们终于有机会来庆贺一下我们已经学到的东西了。
And to realize that we have the basic tools to begin to apply to how we look at life.
而且你要意识到，我们已经有了看待生命和生活的最基本的工具了。
And that's pretty amazing because the lens of astrology is a key to developing greater awareness of life.
这是非常令人惊叹的，因为占星学的透镜会让我们去看待这个生活的这个宏伟之处。
All right. So tonight we're going to look at some combinations, but I want to go through these combinations and share my thought process with you.
那么今天我们会再看一些组合，不过呢，我会和你们分享一下我是如何想这个组合的，这个我的这个思考的过程。
Now, we finished up in our last BAP, we finished up talking about the 12th house.
那么在我们上一节课上，我们已经讲了第12宫。
In that class, we had talked about the 9th house, the 10th house, 11th house, 12th house, and so forth. And so, if anyone has any confusion about these houses before I go into these combinations, now's a chance to ask me a question about it.
那么上一节课我们谈了9到12宫，所以说如果你们对这几个宫位还有什么疑惑的话，你们现在可以问我问题，然后我就开始讲组合了。
Look at that. No one has any questions in this room.
我们这个房间里面没有人有问题。
That's because they know I'll make them come up here.
因为他们知道他们下完课后都会到我跟前来。
Yes. All right. All right. I'm sure we'll have questions as we go along tonight.
那么我们就往下讲了。
All right. So let's take some examples here.
Oh,
we have one question.
The fourth house doesn't mean original family or the family we organize later.
Both.
这位同学问，四宫是我们的原生家庭，还是我们之后组成的家庭？老师的回答是，两者都是。
Now, you will see some books that point to the first house as being early environment.
那么有些书里面会说，第一宫是我们早年的环境。
And there is some truth in this, which I will explain.
那么这一点中，他们在说法中是有一些道理的。我给大家讲一下。
The fourth house is really your roots.
那么第四宫是你的根。
The roots of family, the roots of family influence, the roots of family lineage.
那么你的家庭的根，你的家族的根。
But we know that the ascendant and the first house has everything to do with how we appear, how we look, and our outer personality.
但是我们也知道，第一宫是我们看起来是什么样子，我们的个性是什么样子，描述了这些。
Our bodies show the genes we have inherited.
我们的身体，它向我们展示了我们遗传下来的基因。
At least the obvious genes.
至少是那些明显的基因。
Whether we come from a short family, a tall family, whatever.
不论是我们来自于矮个子的家庭，还是高个子的家庭。
So we can see right there that the first house is connected to family.
所以说，我们可以看到第一宫实际上是跟家庭联系在一起的。
We also know that the first house has to do with our personality.
我们也知道第一宫是和我们的个性是联系在一起的。
Especially in terms of the personality of appearances, how we seem on the surface.
特别是我们表面上所看到的表面上的个性。
We develop this personality in reaction to our environment.
我们依据我们的环境做出的反应来发展了这些个性。
One can say it is our nature to behave that way, but the early environment influences and shapes that too.
有人说，那可能是我们的个性。I'm sorry.
But the early environment influences that and shapes.
就是我们本身有我们的本来的本性是什么样子，但实际上我们早期的环境也塑造了我们的这样的就是我们的性格的表象。
And yet, the fourth house remains the primary indicator of family and roots, both family of origin and family life that you'll create.
不过呢，虽然说了刚才第一宫的这些，但是第四宫仍旧是我们最根本的家庭的影响，还有我们会创造一个什么样的家庭，它仍然是最根本的。
You sound like you have more to say about that than I do.
Because I forget what it says, so I just say what I want to say.
Good, I like that. You're editorializing. That's what that's called. All right. Let's go into the examples here.
我们来看一下这些例子吧。
Sun in Libra in the 8th house.
太阳在天秤座8宫。
Now let's think about these key words as we go along.
当我们来看我的解读的时候，我们看一看这关键词是哪些。
Because what we're doing here is called interpretation.
因为我们现在在做的其实就叫做解读了。
This is when you're sitting there and drinking tea or coffee and explaining your friend's chart to them.
这就是你在那儿喝着咖啡或者喝着茶，给你的朋友解读他们星图时做的事情。
And your friend has the sun in Libra in the 8th house.
你的朋友他的太阳在天秤座第8宫。
And so you can say this to them. Say, you're proud, which is the sun, see, of your ability to negotiate peacefully, which is Libra, in intense situations, which is 8th house.
那么你会说，你为自己在紧急关头冷静谈判的能力感到自豪。那么 自豪这个词是太阳的关键词。那么在非常激烈的环境中，这个是八宫的关键词。能够去和平谈判的这个能力，这是天秤座的关键词。
You really editorialize it tonight. I love it. All right. Did you read the whole thing? You must have read the second sentence too. Did you read the second sentence?
No.
Okay. All right. All right. And so you can see the key words in that sentence very clearly.
所以大家能看到在这一句话里面的关键词。
And certainly there's different ways of arranging that sentence.
当然，我们可以用不同的方式来组合这句话，
Okay.
安排这句话。
Remember, the sun is where we want to shine.
要记得，太阳是我们想发光的领域。
Meaning where you want to shine in your life.
也就是说，你希望在你生命中的哪个领域发光？
If you have the sun in the 4th house, you want to shine with family.
如果你的太阳在第4宫，你想要在你的家族中闪光，
Or you want to be proud of your apartment.
或者是你会为你的公寓而感觉到骄傲。
Yeah, it's the sun in the 4th house.
这是太阳在第4宫。
And we know the 8th house has everything to do with building trust with others.
我们知道第8宫是和我们与他人建立信任关系相关的。
So we see the second sentence which says, your fairness with others earns their trust and makes for more intimate relationships.
所以说，我们看到第2句的这个解读是怎么样出来的了。你对待别人的公正态度，为你赢得了他人的信任，也有助于你跟他人发展更加亲密的关系。
Of all the signs, we know Libra is most noted for being fair.
在所有的星座中，我们知道天秤座它以它的公正而著名。
So we can see that fairness with others is very Libra.
所以说，我们看到了这个公正这一点是天秤座的天秤座的含义。
And earning their trust makes for more intimacy. This is 8th house.
那么赢得他们的信任，而且能够形成更为亲密的关系，这些词都是8宫的含义。
Right. Now, any questions about that? I see we have one question here.
It's different from this sentence.
Is it?
那么大家有对这样2个解读有什么样的还有什么样的问题吗？
Is it a question we should answer now?
Yes, we can answer.
What does it say?
What's the difference of the periods about sun and ascendant? Does it have any difference in time?
What's the difference between the sun
and ascendant?
And ascendant?
Okay. It's because there's some saying that ascendant will show up in 30, things like that.
Now, I think, you can look at the age developments that we all go through.
这位同学刚才问，就是太阳和上升点表现的人格特质，它的出现是有什么样的时间性吗？那么老师说，你可以看一看我们人生的一些阶段。
We human beings have a very long time of maturity. Even our bones don't finally fuse until we're 21 or 22 in terms of final skeletal development.
我们人类呢，它的成熟期 ，why？ 我们的人类的成熟期呢是非常漫长的，哪怕是我们的骨骼到21岁的时候还没有完全的成型。Yes. Yes.
Okay, good. All right. And so if you look at the stages of both bodily development and, of course, the development of the brain, these are natural stages that we all go through.
所以说，你如果看我们的身体和我们的头脑的发展期呢，它是有一个阶段我们要经历的这个时期。
And astrology does relate to those stages.
那么占星学是和那些年龄阶段是联系在一起的，是有关联的。
For example, Saturn is very important as a measure of growth.
比如说，土星是一个非常重要的衡量我们成长状况的一颗行星。
It's at the age of 7 that you begin to lose all your baby teeth, and your permanent teeth come in.
那在7岁的时候呢，我们会把我们的乳牙基本上全都脱落了，然后我们的恒牙会长出来。
You may lose some of your baby teeth before that at 5 or 6, but all the permanent teeth come in around 7.
当然你可能在5、6岁就开始，你的乳牙会脱落，不过呢，那个恒牙的长基本上是在7岁。
The age of 7 becomes sort of the first age of accountability.
那么7岁的时候，也是我们第一次要去承担一些责任的时候。
There's a little bit more pressure put on you as a student.
那时候你要上学，就是你身上会有更多的责任了，作为学生。
It could be the end of nap time at school.
那么实际上，也就是说，在学校呢，你都没有睡午睡的时间了。
So you're beginning to have to deal with a little bit more responsibility.
你必须去应对一些责任。
When I was 7 years old, I learned to cook breakfast for my mother.
我7岁的时候已经学会要为我妈妈做饭了。
So my father wouldn't have to do it.
这样的话，我的父亲就不用去做。
Right. That's a Saturn thing.
那是土星。
Okay. All right. At the age of 14 or 15, Saturn makes an opposition to where it was when we were born versus the right angle it makes at the age of 7 to 8.
那么在14、15岁的时候呢，土星对冲我们本命的土星。他7岁的时候呢，土星是4分我们的本命土星。
When I say this, I'm slowly segueing into what we'll study in EAC about the aspects, because we're talking about cycles.
当我说这些的时候呢，实际上我已经慢慢进入我们中阶课程的这样的相位的阶段了。因为在相位的时候，我们其实讲的是周期。
So think of the 4 phases of the moon. There's the new moon, first quarter, full moon, last quarter.
所以是你要讲那个月亮的4个周期：新月、上弦月、满月和下弦月。
This cycle of the moon is a cycle that also is true about human beings.
那么月亮的周期实际上也是我们人类的一个周期。
So at 7 or 8, we get our permanent teeth, we take on more responsibility. But what happens between the awkward, terrible ages of 14 and 15?
那么在7岁的时候呢，我们的乳牙掉了，我们的恒牙长出来了。那么在14岁这个又尴尬又可怕的年龄会发生什么呢？
Here, Saturn is opposite where it was when we were born. It's kind of a Saturn full moon.
那么实际上这是一个土星的满月期。
We become aware of others.
我们意识到其他人的存在。
But in the serious sense of others.
而且是一个非常严肃的这个对于其他人的意识的。
It's the time when we are the most sensitive to peer relationships.
那时候我们对同伴关系是非常非常认真的。
Teenagers can be unbelievably serious at that age.
在那个年龄，那些少年人们对于这样的同伴的关系是他非常非常看重。
Being popular in school is everything.
在学校受欢迎，对他们来说意味着一切。
Having friends, having relationships.
需要有朋友，有这样的关系。
Getting ready for college.
准备要去上大学。
All those pressures.
所有的这些压力。
And your body is doing strange things.
而且你的身体也出现了一些奇怪的变化。
Teenagers look like big puppies.
那么少年人看上去像这个大的一个木偶。
You know, feet are big and the arms and legs are skinny and they're moving kind of strange and awkward.
他们的比方脚很大呀，他们的手慢慢的长得很长了，然后他们的走路的姿势看起来尴尬极了。
Right. And so I wasn't sure what was going to happen to me when I was 14 and 15. I wasn't sure what kind of creature I was going to turn out to be.
在我14岁的时候，我都不太清楚我会变成一个什么样奇怪的生物。
It was very upsetting that all the girls my age liked older guys.
那么非常非常令人生气的是，跟我同龄的女孩们，她们都喜欢更大年龄的男生，都喜欢老男人。
So that's a very serious time.
那是一个非常非常非常严重的一个时候。
But then what about the last quarter phase of Saturn when we're 21 and 22?
那么最后一个就是说，那个土星的下月的周期又会发生什么呢？
Well, as mentioned a while ago, it's the last development of our bones.
那我刚才也说的，这是我们骨骼的最后一个发展期了，成长期了，
In terms of the growth of our bones.
就是我们骨骼的成长的最后一个阶段。
And we begin to take on adult responsibilities.
那时候我们需要去承担成人的责任了。
But as my teacher used to say to me, you're not an adult yet, really.
那么正如我老师原来跟我讲的，你还不是一个成人呢，
You're practicing at it.
你只不过是假装是一个成人，你在练习成为一个成人。
Because the cycle doesn't complete until you're 29 or 30.
因为这样一个周期，直到29、30岁才会完成。
In fact, and I'm going to get around to answering this question about the ascendant versus the sun, you'll see.
你不要着急，这位同学，我讲了一圈，我最后会回到你的太阳和上升的问题的。
This is my long Sagittarian explanation.
这是我这个很长的射手式的回答。
So you can see that there are life cycles of experience that we all go through.
所以你们大家可以看到，有这样的，我们都有这种人生的周期，这些我们作为人都要去经历的。
But to say that our sun or our ascendant will develop or express themselves differently according to, some say the sun first and some say the ascendant first. It's not true.
但是有人说，比方说我们的太阳还有我们的上升的发展是什么样的年龄？有人说上升的发展是在先的，太阳的发展是在后的，或者是太阳发展在先，上升发展在后，这些说法都是不对的。
You can tell a child's rising sign right away.
你可以立刻就看到一个孩子的上升星座，
They show it immediately.
他立刻就会表现出来。
Right? You can tell their sun sign right away.
你也可以看到他们的太阳星座，
Because it influences their core decision making.
因为这会影响他们的关键的决定。
Okay? You might have a child who is a Libra sun with Aries rising.
你可能会有一个孩子，他的太阳是在天秤座，但是上升是白羊座。
So on the surface, they seem headstrong, impatient as a child.
所以他小时候呢，他看上去好像非常没有耐心，非常的任性。
But they'll cooperate
但是呢，他看上去这样，但是他还会跟你合作。
after a little bit of mischief.
虽然说他们会先淘气一下，但是他们还是会跟你合作。
And the thing to know is that we become, and this is what growth really is, all of us, we become more of who we are the longer we live.
那就是这个是非常重要，特别是就个人成长来说，我们活的时间越久，我们就会越来越成为我们到底是谁的那样一个人。
What you'll realize when you look at the whole chart is that you grow into your chart.
那么你会慢慢意识到，你就会慢慢的成长，成为那个你的星图的那个样子。
It takes your whole life to live it.
你会花去你的一生去活出这个星图来。
It's a fascinating thing.
这是非常令人惊叹的一件事，美妙的一个事儿。
I can't even begin to tell you how many hundreds of clients that I did sessions for back in their 20s saved their little cassette tape.
我可以告诉大家，我为几百个客户做了那些他们做那个咨询，20多年前做的咨询，他们都保存了他们那个录音带。
I don't even know if you remember cassette tapes.
你们可能当中的一些人都不知道什么是录音带了。
But they saved them and they said, I'm listening back to what you said to me 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago.
我的那些客户呢，他们会回听那些录音带，并且对我说，我听了你20年前、25年前你给我做的这个咨询。
And all those things have come to pass.
Come to pass.
All those things have happened.
那么所有的这些事情都发生了。
You know, and especially in terms of their development as a person.
特别是他们作为人的成长。
I remember one woman recently said, you know, back then I thought you were talking about someone else that was in the next room.
那么我记得一个女性最近还对我说，你知道吗？那时候我还以为你讲的这个人是我隔壁的邻居呢。
And in fact, it took that woman a long time to come back in and see me.
实际上那个人呢，他确实花了很长的时间又再回来找我。
But the point is, you will, and your friends and people you know will fulfill so much of what's in that chart over time.
但是最重要的是，你还有你的朋友们，他会就是说慢慢的去成就这个星图所向我们展示的那一切。
For example, my chart, if you look at the meaning of it, is absolutely perfect for being able to go to a foreign country and teach something that I know.
比如说，你们看我的星图，这对于一个去到一个外国去讲占星的这样一个人的星图，就是会发生这样的事情，是非常会有这样完美的这样的展现。
But I didn't do that until I was 60.
但是我直到60岁才做了这件事情。
All right? So see?
所以说，你看到了吗？就是星图上有些展现的是要通过时间。
Okay. All right. Development.
所以这就是成长。
That's what this is all about.
这就是占星学的意义。
Right. I was just a country doctor for 35 years before I came here.
在我来到中国之前，我只不过是一个乡村医生。
Just seeing my clients every day, very happy.
那么那时候我就是每天见见我的客户，很高兴的见我的客户。
Okay. And now I'm very happy.
那现在我也很高兴。
All right. So let's move on. Sun in Aquarius in the 3rd house.
所以说，让我们往下讲。
Look at this.
太阳在水瓶座第3宫。Just now there's a question. In the second sentence, where is the sun?
Oh, the sun just comes from the expresses itself through Libra, wanting to your fairness with others. This is really where Libra wants to shine. See.
那么另外一位同学问，刚才的第2句的解读就是你和他人的公正怎么赢得了他们的信任等等。这位同学问，这个太阳在太阳的关键词是在哪里体现的？那么老师说，实际上就是说，是通过天秤座的这个表现来体现的，就是这个让你闪光，你能够去公平的对待他人。
Libra's sun takes it to heart if you are unhappy with them. It affects them in their heart.
就是说，对于太阳天秤座的人，如果是他们，就是你觉得，他觉得你不高兴的话，这真的会影响他们，会影响他们的心脏的。
As a Libra, I can tell you that's absolutely true.
作为一个天秤座，我可以告诉你们，这真的是如此。
If someone's unhappy with something, what can I do to make this all right?
如果是有人不高兴，我就会想，哎呀，我能够做些什么让这一切都很好呢？
Okay. All right. Sun in Aquarius in the 3rd house.
太阳在水瓶座第3宫。
Okay. You are both clever and inventive.
那么你不仅聪明，而且善于发明创造。
Now here we're looking at clever as being a 3rd house expression like Gemini.
那么这儿那个聪明是3宫的表达，就像双子座一样。
And we know that Aquarius is the most original and inventive.
我们知道水瓶座是那个最有独创性和发明创造能力的。
So here again, the sun shines through being inventive.
所以说，这个太阳呢，通过它的发明创造而闪光。
All right. You take pride in your neighborhood and have a sense of belonging there.
那么你为你的邻里感到骄傲，你对此有一种归属感。
Now, this is the positive expression of this symbol.
那么当然，这是这样一个组合的正向的表达。
Pride in neighborhood would be sun in the 3rd house.
那么为邻里而感到骄傲，这是太阳在第3宫。
And the belonging issue is an Aquarius issue.
那么这个归属感是一个水瓶座的议题。
However, someone could have the sun in Aquarius in the 3rd house and have felt rejected in their neighborhood.
但是同样这样一个有太阳水瓶座3宫的人，他可能会感觉到被他的邻里所拒绝。
If they did not have a sense of participation growing up in the community, but felt rejected.
特别是如果在他们成长的过程中，他没有感觉到参与到这种邻里的活动中去，反而是感觉到被邻里拒绝的话，
Then they would show possibly even a hatred or distancing from their neighborhood.
那这样的话，他可能会发展出来，他甚至是，比方说远离他的邻居，甚至对邻居感觉到恨意。
This is where I grew up. I never fit in here. I never belonged here.
这就是我成长的地方，我从来不属于这里，我从来没办法融入其中。
See, so they have that issue.
所以说他们就会有这样一个议题。
See, so understand there's a positive and a negative to the meaning of these symbols. They might express in a positive way, they might express in a negative way.
所以说你一定要记得，所有这些组合都有正向的表达和负向的表达，它可能以正向的方式表达出来，也可能以负向的方式表达出来。
And what is this question here? Let's see. The same combination, but different explanation is due to difference in aspect in terms of positive, negative aspect.
这位同学问，那么同样一个组合，它的解读不同，难道是因为不同的相位吗？或者是就是说，就他们是正向的表达或者是负向的表达，难道是因为不同的相位吗？
Certainly, some of the challenges and pressures show up with the aspect.
毫无疑问，我们的一些挑战和压力是通过相位表达出来的。
But truthfully, the positive or negative depends on what we do with that challenge.
但是真实的情况是，到底是以正向的表达还是以负向的表达，关键在于是为了这个挑战，我们到底做了什么样的事情。
Someone who felt rejected by their or experienced rejection in their community growing up, this is an issue for them.
那么如果他小时候他成长的过程中感觉到被邻里所拒绝，那么这就是他的一个议题。
It's an issue they must resolve
那么这是一个他们必须去解决的议题。
in order to feel vital in their life. This is the sun. See?
因为这是太阳，所以说他为了让他们自己非常重要的话呢，他必须去解决这个议题。
Suppose, for example, that they felt rejected because maybe their father had a bad reputation in the community.
比如说他们感觉到被邻里拒绝，是因为他们的父亲有一个很坏的声誉，
Or their father had been really different, very eccentric. He was not normal.
或者是他们的父亲不是一个正常人，他是一个有点古怪的人。
You see? So they have that stigma.
所以说呢，他们就会有这样一个 stigma， 有这样一个
Stigma, sort of imprint.
influence， 有这样一个印记。
Right. Again, this becomes part of their story.
那么这就成为他们的人生故事的一部分。
And maybe they find, because they choose to confront this issue, very healthy ways of solving this problem.
因为他们选择了去面对这样一个议题，他们就可能以非常健康的方式解决了这个议题。
Maybe they do leave this community behind and go somewhere else in the world.
也许他们就离开了这个社区，去到了世界的其他的地方。
And they find somewhere where they fit in.
然后他们找到了一个邻里，他们觉得他们可以融入其中，
Because of that need to fit in and make a contribution.
因为他们有这样的需求，他们希望能够去融入自己周围的社区，而且做出贡献。
And then when they go back home or visit their neighborhood, they see it differently.
那么当他做到了这些的时候，他们再返回他们的故乡，他们对故乡的看法就会完全不同了。
This is what personal growth is, of course.
这当然就是个人成长的意义。
And this is how the signs and symbols tell you the potential that could occur there if the person will make a choice to be honest with themselves about what they need.
这就是星座还有这些行星能够告诉我们，如果这个人诚实的面对他们自己的需求的话，他们可以告诉我们，我们可以怎样去选择。
I'm going to tell you the most important thing I could tell you tonight.
我可以告诉大家，我今晚最想给大家说的最重要的一句话。
How do we get in trouble in our lives?
我们在人生中是怎么样遇到麻烦的呢？陷入困境的呢？
By not being true to what we need.
就是对于我们的需求，我们不诚实。
Now the challenge is to find out what we need.
那么给我们挑战是，我们需要去找到我们到底需要什么。
Because sometimes we may not know,
因为有时候我们可能不知道我们需要什么，
or we may temporarily forget.
或者是我们会暂时忘记我们需要什么。
Ultimately, if we are not true to what we need,
但是如果是最终我们对我们自己的需要不保持诚实的话，
we are living a life that is at odds with ourselves.
那么我们就会过上一个跟我们自己作对的一生，
And we are in pain,
然后我们就会陷入痛苦，
and we create pain around us.
我们也会给周围制造痛苦。
This is the truth.
这就是真理，
And this is where astrology is very useful,
这也是占星学非常有用的地方，
because we can see in the chart what is true,
因为我们可以从星图上看到到底什么是真实的，
or it can help us to discover what is true.
或者是占星学可以帮助我们去发现什么是真实的。
Okay. All right. So let's go on to Sun and Taurus in the 5th house.
Okay, some question.
Was there a question there? What is it?
How should we treat the honest part of stuff? Why?
I don't know why it's doing that. It's just how the thing is set. It's plugged in. It just says it's not charging. So say that again. How do we treat the honest part? What do you mean?
这位同学，你能不能再清晰的表达一下？就是说，你比方诚实了，你说怎么样面对？你举个例子，你具体是什么意思呢？
You mean in talking with others?
Maybe she will explain. I don't know what. I think maybe the challenging part. We are true ourselves, but in some challenging situation. How do I handle that?
Well, I have one question.
You have to, since you're here, you have to come up here and say this.
I have to say in Chinese.
You can do both. You can even translate yourself.
Okay, I'll say it.
You have to lean into the computer. All right.
I have one question. Is that we understand the houses. It means the area of our life, but the sign and the planet a little bit confused. How does it work?
我的问题是我们对于宫位是比较了解的，它是我们生活的那个领域和事情要发生的领域，但是行星和星座它分别代表什么不同，这个有一点不太清楚，希望大卫可以解释一下。
Good. All right. We'll come back to the other question. We'll answer this one.
我们先回答这位同学的问题啊，等一会儿再找一找这个刚才问题同学你的解释哈。
Okay. In a way, the houses, which relate a little bit more to place, shows how place also affects our identity and our experience.
那以某种情况下呢，那个宫位呢也描述了我们的领域，而且是描述了这个领域如何影响了我们的身份感和我们的个性。
Okay. And in fact, one of the things I'm trying to point out tonight is not so much the differences, but the similarities between sign, house, and planet.
实际上我今天想指出的不是星座、行星、宫位它们的差异，而更多的是它们的相似性。
Now, let me give you an example of this in terms of family. You can have fun with what I'm about to tell you, looking at your own family.
我可以给你们讲一讲，就是这个在家庭中是怎么样应用的，你们可以去看一看自己家人的星盘。
Now, my father and I both have Sagittarius rising.
我的父亲和我们两个人都是上升射手座。
So we share an obvious common personality type.
所以说呢，我们的个性的这种类型是相似的，共同的。
But my father had the sun in Gemini and the moon in Leo.
但是我的父亲是太阳在双子座，月亮在狮子座。
Whereas I am a Libra sun with the moon in Sagittarius.
而我呢，太阳是在天秤座，月亮在射手座。
However, am I my father's son?
但是我是我父亲的儿子吗？
My father had the sun in the 7th house and the moon in the 9th.
我的父亲的太阳在第9宫，而他的月亮不是太阳在第7宫，月亮在第9宫。
And he had a son who has the sun in Libra, the moon in Sagittarius.
那么他有一个儿子，太阳在天秤座，月亮在射手座。
So I want you to see again how the signs and the houses and planets, how there is this vibration that is interchangeable.
所以说我希望大家看到太阳不是行星、星座、宫 宫位它们怎么样是都可以这样的互换性。
We know that the 12th house can relate to hospitals, for example.
我们知道12宫可以跟那个医院联系在一起。
And maybe if you have planets in the 12th house, you work in some industry or business related to the healthcare industry.
也许如果你的行星在第12宫，你可能是在那些跟健康相关的行业工作。
So we might find you, the setting of your life, we might find you at or near a hospital or a clinic.
所以说，我们可能发现，你可能是在一个医院或者是在诊所这样上班。
But we also know that Pisces and Neptune are associated with healing and might also predispose someone to want to go into a healing profession.
我们也知道双鱼座和海王星是和疗愈也相关的，那么它可能是也会让这个人走入疗愈的领域。
Right. So don't think of the houses as only place or the signs and planets as not relating to place because they might.
所以说你不要想，只有宫位和我们的这个我们的位置啊，我们的什么生活哪个领域相关，而星座和行星跟它没有关系。
Now, I'll give you another example.
我给大家再举一个例子。
Again, I'll give you a personal example.
我再给你一个我的例子。
My father had Mars in Sagittarius.
我的父亲火星在射手座。
I have Mars in Sagittarius.
我的火星也在射手座。
My father had Mars in Sagittarius in the first house.
我父亲的火星射手座在第一宫。
I have Mars in the 12th house.
我的火星呢是在12宫。
My father was a very direct man.
我的父亲是一个非常直截了当的人。
You always knew exactly where you stood with him.
当你跟他在一起的时候，你立刻会知道他到底是什么样。
There was nothing subtle about him.
他这个人一点都不微妙，一点都不那个
Nothing subtle.
他从来都是非常直截了当的。
Very direct, very honest, very assertive.
非常的直接，非常的强调自己的立场。
This is a first house Mars.
这就是第一宫的火星。
Mine's in the 12th.
而我的是在12宫。
I liked being alone when I was little.
我小时候我就喜欢一个人待着。
I liked wandering the woods.
我喜欢在森林里面漫游。
And I did not assert my anger or aggressiveness outwardly.
而且我也不会把我的愤怒直截了当的表达出来。
It was more hidden.
我的愤怒更是隐蔽的。
In the unhealthy sense, suppressed.
以一种不健康的方式，也就是说，我压抑了我的愤怒。
And I was on kind of a spiritual path very deliberately from an early age.
而且我在很年轻的时候，我就有意的走上了灵性的道路。
When I was a little boy, my father was afraid I was going to grow up to be a minister or a preacher.
我小的时候，我父亲就很害怕我将来会成为一个牧师。
Because I was interested in such things.
因为我就对这些事情感兴趣。
But he was very direct.
但是我父亲是一个非常直接的人。
You're going to become one of those preachers. I'm going to be so unhappy.
你要成为那样一个牧师，我会特别不高兴。
You know, he's very direct. You always knew exactly where you stood.
他非常直截了当，你立刻知道他的立场是什么。
All right. See the differences? I want you to see how the houses also affect behavior.
所以说，你看到了这个不同吗？我想让你们知道，这个宫位实际上它也影响了我的行为，我的行为。
Right. Okay. All right. Sure. That's what this is all about. You got to come up here, though. While Felicia is searching out the other questions here. I don't want the folks at home here to be jealous if you were here at the class. All right.
Already.
Okay.
But how do we know that we are acting in a certain way? Is because we have this chart, not because we know the chart is like this. So we're acting like according to this chart.
Well,
翻译一下，对不对？我就是想问啊，就是因为我们每个人都有一些特定的行为模式，我怎么知道说我这样去做是因为我有这个星盘，所以我这样做的，而不是说我知道我星盘是这样，所以我们就是去按照这个星盘，然后来就是做相应的行为模式。
Well, the first thing you have to do is compare what did you know to be true about yourself before you even knew any astrology.
那首先呢，你需要去比较一下，在你知道占星学之前，你知道你自己是什么样的。
So you have to compare the known truth about yourself or others to what you are studying.
所以说你要去比较一下你原来你自己所知道的真实状况。
This is what really fascinated me about astrology from the beginning.
这是占星学一开始就让我这么感兴趣的原因。
Even though your question is rooted in what I call a healthy skepticism.
虽然你的问题呢，我可以把它叫做一个健康的怀疑。
I like seeing critical thinking amongst all my students.
我希望我所有的学生呢，都要有这种一种批判和怀疑的态度。
But when I got into astrology, the thing that amazed me so much was not only that I could relate to what the astrology said, but that it fit everyone I knew.
那我是觉得它占星学不仅是符合我，而且它也符合我所认识的人他们的一切。
And the books that I was reading didn't know these people.
那我读的那些书可是不认识这些人的。
So that's what amazed me.
所以说这是让我惊叹的地方。
From the beginning. Okay. All right. Good skeptical question though.
这是很好的那个。
Right, then we have some other.
I still do not understand 李嘉熙的问题，就是诚实的对待那一部分。No one thinking is mentioned part with 诚实的面对我们的she wonder how 李嘉欣，你问的是什么问题？诚实的面对我们内在的情绪是吗？我们如何诚实的面对我们内在的情绪？我不大明白你的问题。She wonders how do we honestly face our inner emotions?
Wow, that's a whole workshop.
这如果我们如何诚实的面对内在情绪？他说这是一个工作坊才能解答的问题。
But it starts by being as honest as you can stand it.
那么它是开始于以你能自己忍受的你的诚实开始。
You know, even with my clients, I cannot push them any faster than they're ready to go.
即便跟我的客户，我也不可能让那个推进他们太快，就是说比他们能够去前行的速度更快的来推进他们。
For example,
比如说
I might see something in a chart that makes me suspicious that there was some kind of abuse they experienced growing up.
可能我看到一个星图，我会怀疑，也可能他小时候曾经遭到一些虐待。
I don't know if there was or not, but there's a suggestion of it.
我不知道是不是真的是这样，不过呢，有这样的暗示，星图上。
And I might find ways of being able to approach that subject, even in the beginning.
我可能即便是一开始，我也可能会找到一些方式来接近这个话题。
But my client will either not talk about it or deny it.
但是我的客户呢，他要么是不谈论这个事情，或者就否认这个事情。
So I skip ahead and we talk about other things.
那么我也就跳过这个话题，我们去谈谈其他的。
But if it's true, probably around the third, fourth, or fifth session, they will open up and tell me all about it.
但如果是真实的话呢，也许在第3次或者第4次或第5次，他们会敞开去谈一谈这个问题。
All of us build up defenses. All of us do.
我们所有人都会建立起来我们的防御体系。
No one likes to feel vulnerable.
没有人想要感觉到脆弱。
So we all build defenses up around our sense of vulnerability.
所以说，我们都会在我们的脆弱感周围建立起来厚厚的防御体系。
The root of this vulnerability is very simple.
那么我们这种脆弱感的根源实际上是很简单的。
It is our fear of losing connectedness with others.
实际上就是我们害怕失去和其他人的连接。
Now, I'm not just saying this because I'm a Libra.
我这么说并不是因为我是一个天秤座，所以我这么说。
Human beings are social animals.
人类实际上是社交动物。
We are not tigers. We may have tigers as a symbol, but we are not tigers.
我们不是老虎，我们可能老虎是我们的一个标志，但是我们并不是老虎。
Tigers are not social. They mate and then they separate.
那么老虎不是群居性动物，它们可能交配，然后它们就分离。
And they do not live in packs.
而且 他们也不会是一群一群的在一起。
Human beings live in packs.
但是人类是要进入社会的群居的，
Like wolves.
像狼一样。
We are social, we evolve that way.
我们渐渐进化成了这种群体的这样一个模式。
So even if you have the sun, moon, and ascendant in Aries,
哪怕你的太阳、月亮还有上升全都在白羊座，
and you are the least cooperative of the pack,
你这一群人里面最不合作的那类人，
you still need connectedness.
你还是需要那种连接感。
So that's the important thing to remember.
这个是要记得，这一点非常重要。
All right. Getting some great. Everyone's saving up their big questions for the last class here.
One is personal question.
What is the meaning of the universe? That's what that one is.
老师说大家都把最大的问题留在今天这堂课了。有人要问宇宙的意义是什么？Please.
Now, many
我们
mothers.
先回答共同的问题。对于个人星图的单个的解读，暂时先不要，我们没有暂时先不说。
The answer is sure, though. Yes.
这个问题是现在很多的母亲她们都选择了孩子的出生的时间，那么这个星图是否代表了这个孩子的命运呢？老师说是的。
Because it's the first breath, whether it's a C-section or not.
因为你是剖腹产还是不是剖腹产，关键是就是婴儿出体内后的第一口呼吸，自主呼吸。
Yes, you may have memories that you were kidnapped by aliens because you had a C-section.
是的，如果是你是剖腹产的，你有一个记忆，你被那个什么外星人所绑架。
However, it is from an astrological point of view, it is the first breath. That's the important moment. That's your first independent act.
那么从占星学的角度来讲呢，你的第一口呼吸是你的第一个独立的行为。
Without that, nothing happens.
如果没有这样一个独立的行为，然后什么都不会发生了。
And you know, again, you've got to see that there's some. The mother. Let me give you an example. The mother may select a time.
这位同学说，那可是这是母亲选择的时间，而不是自然的决定啊。
But I've seen plenty of times when that happened and the labor happened at a different point. You know, now the labor happened ahead of the C-section. The child. Yeah.
那是，但是呢，其实好多时候呢，虽然说母亲选择了这个事情，但是时间，那好多时间他的这个出生的时间跟母亲选择也不一样。
Yeah. So, you know. Babies are born whenever they need to be born, you know.
实际上就是说，当这个孩子需要出生的时候，他就出生了。
And it's kind of like this. You're attracted to conditions that have layers.
实际上是这样的，我们人会被一个不同层面的这种条件所吸引。
Some of you may believe in a soul, some may not.
有些人可能会相信有灵魂这个事儿，有些人可能不相信。
But if you believe in a soul, which I do,
但是如果是你像我一样相信灵魂的话，
which means a spark of eternal life in each of us,
这就其实相信灵魂，它就意味着我们相信我们内在有一个永恒的生命的闪光。
then we gravitate as a soul towards what we need.
我们作为一个灵魂，我们会被我们的需要。我们的需要就像万有引力一样，把我们吸到那里去。
And obviously, need on the soul level means something very different than we think of as human beings.
当然，在灵魂层面的需要和我们作为人类这个个人层面的需要是非常不同的。
Otherwise, everyone would choose to be born to a wealthy family in Southern California.
不然的话，每个人可能都会选择去生到南加州的一个富有的家庭去。
And it would be a very crowded place.
那南加州会变成一个非常非常拥挤的地方。
Which would change.
那么这样的话，那个地方也会改变了。
Yes, but need is something else. See?
但是需求呢是另外一件事。
And it is those layers of need that are reflected by the chart.
那么我们灵魂的需要被这个星图，这个灵魂的不同层面的需要被这个星图所反映。
And we know the birth time is important.
我们知道出生时间非常的重要。
But you also know, and you'll learn this even more when you look at the whole chart.
但是呢，我们也学到，特别是如果是你学整个星图的解读的话，
That there are layers of identity.
就是我们有不同层次的这种身份感。
You've learned some of those layers in this course.
你们在这个课上呢，学到了一些的层面。
You know, you haven't. If you're born with the sun in Aries or the sun in Capricorn, you needed to have the sun in Capricorn. You needed to have the sun in Aries.
如果你的太阳是在白羊座或者在摩羯座，其实上你需要你的太阳在白羊座和在摩羯座。
So that's one layer that fits the need, and the sun is in that sign for a month.
所以说呢，这就是那个需要的一个层面，因为太阳在那样一个星座会待1个月。
So you can sort of narrow it down, and then you can say, well, the moon is in a sign for 2.5 days.
然后呢，你可以这样子一点点的把你的那个需要的缩窄。比方说，月亮会在一个星座2天半。
Okay, and so forth and so on, till you get down to the times.
直到你最后到那个时间点。
Okay. All right. I don't want to get too metaphysical here. So, was there another question? Oh, good. Okay, let's
I
go.
think we need to go on.
We never made it through the sun and Taurus in the 5th house.
我们必须得往下讲了，因为9点了，我们还得太阳在金牛座第5宫。
I think my students are more jet lagged than me.
Yeah.
I'm projecting my jet lag onto my students.
OK， 他说大概大家比我更早在倒时差，他把他的倒时差那个投射在同学们身上。
What was that phrase I saw about Taurus today on the bag? Do you remember that?
Oh, I forget.
I did. Maybe anyway, it was something about the luxury of yourself. What was it?
I forget.
The luxury. That's it. I saw a slogan on a bag today. On a bag.
那么今天呢，他在一个那个背包上面看到了一个口号。
And here was the slogan. It was the luxury of being yourself.
那么口号就是说，做你自己的这种奢侈。
And I thought immediately of Taurus.
我立刻就是想到了金牛座。
It's one of the things I sometimes wish I was a Taurus.
因为我有时候希望我是个金牛座。
Just so that I could eat chocolate and see what it tastes like for a Taurus.
我希望像金牛座那样吃巧克力，然后像金牛座那样尝一下巧克力到底是什么
Or
味
be
道。
a Taurus and go get a massage.
或者是做一个金牛座去做按摩。
If I could be a Taurus, that would be the first thing I would do.
如果是我是金牛座，是我第一个我要去做的。
I want to say, how does this feel? This is going to feel really good.
我想说这会感觉怎么样？就会感觉很好。
Because I'm a Taurus and wow.
因为我是个金牛座，哇。
I can luxuriate at how this feels on my skin.
我可以享受这样的奢侈，能够感觉一下我的皮肤这样的按摩是到底什么样的感觉。
Taurus. All right. What about Taurus sun in the 5th house?
太阳金牛座5宫又是什么意思呢？
Having fun is part of the motivation for you.
那么去能够获得乐趣是促使你行动的动力之一。
You pride yourself in knowing how to have a good time.
你以知道怎么样才能玩得开心为荣。
Recreation is vital to you.
娱乐对你来说至关重要。
We'll go through these sentences in a minute. Finances can be a game to you.
金融活动也可能成为你的游戏。
You're willing to gamble if you sense the risk may be worth taking.
你如果觉得值得冒险，你会心甘情愿下赌注。
Okay. We can see the key words pretty clearly here.
我们可以在这里很清晰的看到这些关键词。
The 5th house is fun.
那么5宫就是要游乐、玩乐。
So the sun in the 5th house is motivated by fun.
所以说，太阳落在5宫，它是这个玩乐可以给它带来动力。
We can also see the sun in the 5th as you pride yourself in knowing how to have a good time.
那么太阳在5宫，就是你知道怎么样才能玩得开心，你对此感觉到很骄傲、很
And
自
again,
豪。
and again, the 5th house, recreation is vital to you.
5宫呢，就是说娱乐对你来说至关重要。
Now, what about the Taurus part?
那么金牛座那部分在哪里呢？
Finances can be a game to you.
金融活动可能成为你的游戏。
I know that a couple of Sun and Tauruses in the 5th house who are financial. One is a stockbroker, and actually both of them are stockbrokers.
我知道有2个太阳在5宫金牛座的人，他们都是股票经纪人。
They also have planets in the 8th house, by the way.
他们也有行星在第8宫，顺便说一下。
Remember, 5th house, 8th house combinations will often be in financial speculation businesses.
你要记得5宫和8宫的这个组合常常是在金融的这种活动中，金融行业中。
We know the sign Taurus does not like to take risks.
我们知道金牛座其实是不喜欢去冒险的。
But here's a willingness to gamble. See, Sun in the 5th house.
但是呢，太阳在5宫，这就会让这个人呢会愿意去冒险。
And look at the phrase, if you sense the risk may be worth taking. This is Taurus.
那么你看看我们这里面是怎么造句的？如果是你觉得值得冒险，这个是金牛座的部分。
Now, I'll tell you something about my sister.
我告诉大家我姐姐的一些事儿。
She's a Capricorn,
她是一个摩羯座。
which was rough on me growing up.
我成长的过程中，她对我很厉害。
But she has the Sun in Capricorn in the 5th house.
但是她的太阳是在第5宫摩羯座。
She loves to play games.
她特别喜欢玩游戏。
And she loves to win at them.
而且她特别喜欢在游戏中赢。
She plays until she wins.
她一直玩直到她赢。
But guess what she does for a living?
但是你知道她是什么她的谋生的职业是什么吗？
Her career for the last 10 or 12 years,
她过去10到12年的职业，
maybe 10 years, is called play ball.
她的职业呢是那个就是那个游戏的球。
It's a franchise business
这是一个连锁生意。
where she goes around to schools
这就是说她到各个学校去，
and teaches very young kids who are under the age of 7
她去教那些7岁以下的小孩儿，
basic skills of how to play.
就是说如何玩的最简单的那些技巧。
Is that not perfect?
你说这是不是非常的完美啊？
And that's literally what it's called, play ball.
这就为什么他们真的叫它游戏的球。
And this is her job, Capricorn.
这就是她的工作，摩羯座，太阳在5宫，溜溜球，对，游戏球，溜溜球。
And she has a small company, and she's trained others to do this, to go to schools.
她有一个小公司，然后她会培训她公司里其他人，然后他们到不同的学校去教这些。
This is how literal astrology can be.
这个占星学是多么的那个真实的呈现的啊。
But she used to beat me in every game when we were growing up.
但是我们一起成长的时候呢，每一个游戏她都要把我打败。
She was miserable if she thought she would lose. Just miserable.
如果是她想她觉得她要输的话，她就觉得悲惨极了。
And she still does this at family reunion. She has games.
那么我们家庭重聚的时候，她还是玩这套游戏。
And she gives trophies to whoever wins the family game.
然后她还是要有这个游戏，如果是谁赢了这个游戏的话，她有战利品给大家。
This is the truth. And she has the most trophies.
而且这是真的，而且是她自己搜集的战利品最多。
And she always reminds us of this.
而且她总是提醒我们，她的获胜次数最多。
Are you going to be there this year?
你今年会去吗？她会问我。
Too bad about last year.
去年你真是太糟糕了。
So I'm the nice Libra. I say yes, wasn't it?
那当然了，我是那个天秤座，我很配合，我说是啊，就是这样的。
Anyway, all right. Moon in Leo in the 2nd house.
Someone asked, don't you consider second house and 6th house when you're talking about her work?
Oh, of course.
当然有这个同学问他的工作难道不考虑2宫、6宫和10宫吗？老师说当然要考虑。
But we need to find expressions of who we are, and the sun is very important.
但是我们需要能够表达，就是看到我们到底是什么样的人，他的这个的表达，而在这个表达中，太阳是非常重要的。
Prior to play ball, my sister was a coach.
在我姐姐做这个溜溜球之前呢，她是一个教练。
She was an athlete, so she taught swimming, tennis, softball.
她是一个体育运动员，所以她教那个网球，那个 soccer ball，
It's kind of like baseball.
棒球，这些游泳。
Right. My sister was the athlete. Okay. All right. So here we go. Moon in Leo in the second house.
月亮在2宫狮子座，
Look at this first sentence.
看看这第一个句子。
You get upset if you're not paid what you feel you're worth.
如果收入没体现你的价值，你会变得沮丧。
The moon is emotional.
月亮是那种非常情绪化的，
In Leo, there's pride.
狮子座呢是他有这种骄傲在。
You think I'm going to work here for that money?
你认为我会为了这点钱在那儿工作，在这儿工作？
Or, you promised you were going to pay this and you're not.
你承诺你要给我付这么多钱，但是你没有。
I will not be treated this way.
我不可能被这样对待。
This is moon in Leo in the second house.
这是月亮在第2宫狮子座，
You have expensive needs.
你有那种非常昂贵的需要。
The husband who has a wife who has the moon in Leo in the second house spends a lot of his money.
如果你的太太，这个人的太太，她的月亮在狮子座第2宫的话，那么她肯定要花很多钱。
Shopping, but she says, I'm worth it, aren't I?
她会到处买东西，然后她说我值得这些好东
That's
西。
right. Shopping is great fun for you, absolutely.
而且对她来说，去购物是一个她的乐趣所在。
Remember, Leo is like the fifth house, also likes to have fun.
知道狮子座就像第5宫，他们也喜欢游乐。
Okay? All right. My sister, who is the butt of all my jokes, I think. Go ahead.
我的姐姐是我的玩笑的一个主题。
She is a Capricorn with a sun in the fifth house. She has Leo rising.
她是个摩羯座，在第5宫的摩羯座，但是她上升是狮子座。
So see if that accentuates the theme. The fifth house, Leo rising. There's two things that stand out. See?
所以说，它其实加强了这个狮子座的主题。5宫，然后上升狮子座，这个狮子座的主题被强调了。
And here we have money, key to celebrating life. This is very much Moon and Leo in the second house.
对你来说，钱财是欢庆生活的关键。
You need the things you own to express the color and drama of life.
因为你需要用自己拥有的物质来体现生活的多姿多彩。
Leo likes quality,
狮子座喜欢那种品质，
wants the real gold,
他们需要真金白银。
the jade that has an authentic certificate.
它的那个珠宝呢是一定要有那个真品保质的，
Clothing that comes
那种
from
证书的。
clothing with a designer name.
如果他们的衣服呢，他们需要有设计师的名字的那种，
Colorful clothing.
那种非常色彩缤纷的衣服。
Very, very stylish. And loud sometimes, a little too much sometimes.
他们有时候是
Colorful.
非常多姿多彩，
Dramatic,
嗓门很大，而且非常的戏剧性。
All right. Moon in Gemini in the ninth house.
月亮在第9宫双子座，
You'd be a natural teacher.
你有做老师的天分，
This is ninth house.
这是第9宫。
I think of the moon as natural in the sense of instinctive.
那么我说那个天生哈，就是说他们有一种直觉。
But notice the second part of the sentence, especially in terms of language.
那么特别是做教语言的老师，
Right? Because there's the Gemini
因为这个教语言是双子座的部分。
in the ninth house.
双子座第9宫，
You could be an excellent tour guide.
你可以是一个非常出色的导游。
Can you see that? Moon and Gemini in the ninth house as a tour guide.
你可以看到那个吗？月亮在第9宫双子座，做一个出色的导游。
Right? You might have an instinct for the travel business.
你可能对于旅游业天生就有感觉。
Instinct is the moon, travel is ninth house.
那么这种直觉是月亮，那么旅游业呢是第9宫。
Everything in life feeds your curiosity.
生命中的一切都能够满足你的好奇心。
The moon is what nurtures us, isn't it?
就是说能够喂饱你的好奇心。那么月亮呢是滋养我们的。
Gemini is the most curious of signs.
那么双子座是12星座中最有好奇心的。
You'd be at home living abroad.
移居海外会让你感觉到舒适极了，会让你感觉到就像在自己家里一样。
The moon is one of the things that shows where we can be at home.
那月亮是会让我们知道，就是在哪儿我们感觉到就跟在自己家里一样那种感觉。
If you have a client that comes to you and their child has the moon in the 9th house, and they ask you the question, will my child study abroad?
如果你有一个客户，他的一个孩子月亮在第9宫，他问你一个问题：我的孩子会去出国留学吗？
In China, amongst the upper class, that's a common question.
在中国的就是说中产阶级以上的这些人，这是一个常见的一个问题。
And when the moon's in the 9th house, I say it's quite likely.
但是当我看到他们的月亮在第9宫的话，我会对他们说，完全可能。
Okay, all right. Now, your mother may have strongly influenced your fascination with other people's ideas.
你会对别人的观点着迷，或许这来自于你母亲的强烈影响。
This could be true because, again, it's Gemini. This implies mother was kind of curious and talkative.
这可能是真的，因为月亮在双子座，这可能是母亲是非常好奇心很强，而且是非常能聊的、能交谈的一个人。
For the modern mother, this may be someone that teaches their child how to use their search engine on their phone or on their iPad quickly.
对于一个现代的母亲来说，可能这个母亲会教他们的孩子怎么样在他们的手机上面或者是 iPad 上面用搜索引擎。
But for me, it was more like the mother that buys books for their children, magazines, a subscription to National Geographic.
但是对我这一代人，可能这个母亲呢，她会给她的孩子买国家地理这样的杂志。
I have the moon in Sag. I loved National Geographic when I was a kid.
我的月亮在射手座，当我是小孩的时候，我特别喜欢国家地理杂志。
I still like it.
我现在还很喜欢。
All right.
What is the moon Gemini in the 12th house? Because the 12th house is like you enjoy just being yourself, but you're a Gemini.
Yeah.
You talk to yourself.
Right, here we go. We have a question, Dan.
这位同学问你一个问题，他说如果是你的月亮在双子座，但在第12宫怎么办呢？因为月亮在双子座，他喜欢聊天，但是在12宫，难道你自言自语吗？
One of the things I think about with the moon and Gemini in the 12th house immediately is how perfect that is for a writer.
那么我想到的是，这样一个组合对于一个作家来说是多么的完美。月亮在双子座12宫。
The 12th house moon has a need for some time away from it all.
因为12宫的月亮，它有时候需要远离人群。
A writer needs to be able to spend some time away from it all.
一个作家他需要独处的时间。
Or at least secluded. It could be even at a coffee shop, but alone.
就是说那种要去跟就是不在人群中，哪怕他在咖啡馆里面，但是他也是独自一个人待着。
But at home, tuning the world out.
但是呢，他感觉到他就像在家一样，把这个世界能够表达出来。
But with a need, the moon, to say things.
但是月亮在双子座，他需要说点什么。
Gemini in the 12th house means a need. The moon in Gemini in the 12th house means a need to whisper to the masses.
那么月亮在双子座12宫，这个人有这种需要，他需要对于人群低语。
If I could just tell everyone what's on my mind, just whisper into thousands of millions of people's ears.
如果我能对着成千上百的人，对着他们的耳朵说悄悄话，告诉他们我到底想的是什么。
12th house.
这就是12宫。
Okay. There's some other questions here. We're going to get to your questions. We're doing the best we can here.
Someone says maybe communicate with universe.
Yes, absolutely. Write a book on meditation.
比如说你写一本关于冥想的书，邪教教主。
How about this? The meditation. What was that? What did they say?
This is the head of a cult.
Head of what?
A cult.
A cult.
Yeah.
Moon and Gemini in the 12th? I don't know about the head of the cult. Maybe the one that writes the newsletter for the cult.
老师说月亮在双子座12宫可能做不了教主，他可能是为这个教主写那个什么写那个新闻的人，通讯稿的。
The secret newsletter. Yeah.
他会写一些秘密的那种光明措施。
Yes, but the one who also spreads the rumors about the cult.
而且这个人会传播关于这个邪教的那个谣言的。
And ultimately gives the story to the press.
然后呢，他会把这个谣言最后传到那个媒体那去。
You see Gemini. Yes. Okay. All right. All right. And you see these other examples of moon in Gemini in the ninth house. Reading gives you comfort. Books are like food. This is very much the moon in Gemini.
所以你还看到了我其他的这个对这段话的一些解读。你从求知中获得安全感，书籍就是你的食粮，你从阅读中会获得慰藉。
All right, we have another question here. What's that?
Moon in Cancer in 12th house. Oh, there's so many.
Oh, now everybody wants their chart done. Moon in Cancer in the 12th house. Wow.
I think this is.
What was it? That one right there.
No. He just said Cancer in 12th house. Does it like Moon in 12th house?
Similar, but Cancer in the 12th house, in a way, wants to feed the world.
月亮在12宫和巨蟹座在12宫呢有些相似，不过呢，巨蟹座在12宫呢是他希望能够喂养全世界。
I had a client who had, I think it was Sun in Cancer in the 12th house.
那么他的太阳在巨蟹座12宫。
This was back in the 70s.
这是70年代的事儿。
And he invented something called that he called Love Burger.
他发明了一个叫做爱的汉堡包这样一个产品。
It was a vegetarian substance. You mix it with water and make patties and cook them, and it tasted like meat.
它实际上是一个素食，然后他把这个素食搅和一下，然后怎么样弄一下哈，就吃起来像肉一样。
It was made from soy, lots of other things.
它还有什么有豆子啊，是由豆子做的。
But they tasted to an American just like a hamburger.
但是呢，美国人吃起来就觉得像汉堡一样。
If you followed his directions in cooking them and everything.
如果是你根据他的那个指导，按照他的方法来做的话。
And he was a vegetarian.
他是一个素食主义者。
And he wanted the whole world to be vegetarian.
他希望那个全世界的人都成为素食。
So he created a food that he thought would be very popular.
所以说他就发明了这样一种食物，他觉得很会流行起来。
And it became very popular in the 70s.
在70年代确实是很流行。
And he eventually sold it to a larger company.
那最终呢，他把这个公司呢卖给了一个大的公司。
That's the story of Love Burger.
那就是爱的汉堡包的故事。
But that's Cancer in the 12th house.
不过那是巨蟹座在12宫。
And by the way, this individual also spent some time in prison.
那么再说一下，这个人呢，他也在监狱里待过一段时间。
Before he invented Love Burger.
在他发明这个爱的汉堡包之前。
But he had a Sun Neptune square. I don't know when to get into aspects. But...
不过呢，他也是因为太阳和海王星有一个四分相。
And the Sun in the 12th house.
太阳又在12宫。
He was in prison for drugs.
他就是进监狱的原因是因为吸毒。
For marijuana.
他抽大麻。
And he practiced meditation in prison.
然后呢，他在监狱里面就开始冥想。
This is all 12th house.
这都是12宫啊。
He said he even got some of the other prisoners to meditate.
他甚至让他的狱友也开始冥想。
And it was a wonderful experience.
对他来说是一个非常美妙的经历。
That's 12th house.
那是12宫。
Yes. Okay. See, these things play out very, very literally. In fact, I wonder where this man is now. I remember him really well.
这些事情真的是会很真实的表现在生活中。If Moon in Sagittarius.
Moon in Sagittarius in the 9th house means Sagittarius issues is too much important. What do you mean? What do they mean too much important? In his mind.
Is that too much?
Well,
it shouldn't be that much. I don't know what it means. 月亮在射手座，同时又在第9宫，这是不是意味着射手座的议题对他来说太重要了呢？
The question is, too much for whom?
关键是太重要，这个太到底是对谁？
It might be too much for others,
可能这个问题是对别人太多了，
but maybe not too much for him.
但对他来说可能还没有那么过分，对他来说没有那么多。
Others may say, don't preach to me, please.
别人可能说你别再对我说教了。
We'll say, you're right, okay, you're right.
我们说你对，都是你对，
Enough of that.
够了吧？
Yeah, right. But maybe that could be someone who's a comedian.
那也可能这个人呢是一个喜剧演员，
So they can get up and tell jokes that are true to people.
因为他们能够站起来，就是对人们说那些实话。
Or be a teacher, a professor,
或者他是一个老师，一个教授，
who has an audience that must listen to them.
他有一群听众，这些听众必须得听他说话。
Right. So that could be that.
这都是第9宫的表达。
All right.
月亮射手第9宫的表达。
All right. What about Mercury and Pisces in the 7th house?
那么水晶在双鱼座第7宫又会如何呢？
You can talk empathetically with your partner about intimate issues like sexual matters. This should be 8th house. This is a mistake.
OK。
There's a typo in this, people. Tell them.
那么这个里面我们这个打错了哈，应该水星落在第8宫双鱼座。
Yeah.
解读是落在第8宫双鱼座。
Right.
你可以感同身受的同伴侣交流一些私密的话题，比如说性。
That's supposed to be 8th house. Yes.
这是第8宫。
Virgo. Right. Okay. So now you can see intimate issues like sexual matters. This would make sense.
这时候你就知道了这种私密性话题，就像性话题。这是第8宫。
Being empathetic is very Pisces.
那种感同身受是那种双鱼座的感觉。
And the 8th house is, again, remember, one of the partnership houses
那么第8宫呢是一个伴侣的宫位，第1。
that deals with intimacy and sexual issues.
那么它处理的是亲密关系还有性的问题，性议题。
Discussions about money with your partner sometimes can get overly complicated.
有时候跟伴侣谈论钱的问题会变得过于复杂。
We know discussions with partner about money, that's very much 8th house.
我们知道，和伴侣谈论钱的问题，这是非常8宫的。
And we know that Pisces is the most complicated sign
我们知道双鱼座是最复杂的一个星座，
because there's 12 answers to every problem with Pisces.
因为对于一个问题有12个解答，对于双鱼座的人来说，
And each answer has possibilities.
每一个解答都有可能性。
Just imagine being a Pisces for a little while.
你想象你做一会儿双鱼座的人会是什么样？
Okay. Your lack of detail can lead to misunderstandings with your partner.
你不擅长细节描述，这往往会造成你和伴侣之间的误解。
Your partner looks at the checkbook. You know what a checkbook?
当你的伴侣去看你的支票簿的时候，
And says, you didn't write down how much this was for.
你的伴侣可能说，哎，你怎么没有写下来这个到底是多少钱呢？
Do you remember? I don't even remember writing that check.
你记得吗？然后这个双鱼座的人说，我都不记得我写过这个支票簿。
Right. This would be Mercury and Pisces response.
这就是水星在双鱼座的这样一个回应。
God, I don't know. I have no idea what that was for.
那或者是你说我都一点不记得了，这个到底是干什么了？
And then the next morning, I dreamed about that check.
然后第2天他可能说，我昨天晚上梦见了那个支票。
And now I know what I wrote it for.
现在我知道了，我到底是那个支票买什么了。
Okay. All right. Everyone seems to like that one. What's this question here? What's this? How about having Mercury, Mars, Venus, all in Virgo, and they're in the first house? It's self-identification, the most important issue in life.
这位同学问，如果是水星、火星、金星全都在处女座第1宫，是不是自我身份感是他们人生中最重要的议题呢？
Yes, self-identification. Yes, but
是的，就是自我的身份感。
this is Virgo in the first house is about the perfection of self.
那么处女座一宫是意味着自我的完善。
So all that Virgo in the first house is, again, the perfection of the body, perfection of whatever they're interested in.
就是说所有的这些东西在一宫，表示你的身体的这个完美，还有说就是说你的一切的这样的完美，你认为重要的一切的完美。
If somebody has 3 planets in Virgo in the first house and they take a yoga class,
如果这个人3个行星都在处女座一宫，他去参加一个瑜伽课。
Virgo likes to practice.
因为处女座他喜欢去练习，不断的练习。
So they'll practice those poses until they get them perfect.
所以说他会不断的练习那些姿势，直到他们觉得自己已经很完美了。
In the first house, right?
What about in 7th house?
Well, in the 7th house, it's wanting to perfect relationship skills.
那么如果处女座在这3颗行星都落在第7宫，他们希望去完善他们的关系的这样的技巧。
Being the perfect partner.
成为一个完美的伴侣。
And also attracting the perfect partner.
或者
would be a problem.
或者是他们想要吸引来一个完美的伴侣，当然这就会带来议题。
The best thing Virgo in the 7th house could ever say is to their partners, "You're almost perfect."
一个处女座群星在7宫的人，他能对他的伴侣说的最好的话，也就是你基本上快完美了。
Almost.
你几乎快完美了。
Except for these things here.
除了我这个表单上列出的这些，你近乎完美。
And remember something funny.
而且记得还有一个。
The poet. 是。 We've got some problem.
No.
With QQ here coming in.
但是那个很多行星在处女座的人。
Okay.
处女座一宫的人。
Right, and she said, "How do I love thee? Let me count the ways."
他说，我是怎么爱你的？让我来细数。
Now it's a beautiful poem, very Pisces.
这是一个非常美的诗歌，非常双鱼座的诗歌。
But she had to make a list.
但是他得列个表单。
This is Virgo rising.
这是他的上升处女座。
See, it's just astrology is that literal.
占星学就是这样活灵活现的表达出来。
It's counting it up here. So
我来数一数。
Yes, all right. We have one moon in the 8th house in Libra. Should I answer that? You have one. What? You're a Scorpio. What are you talking about? All right. With a lot of Libra. Mercury in Sagittarius in 6. We'll stick with the lesson for right now.
我们现在还是来看一下我们的那个材料吧。水星落在第6宫射手座。
You have an interest in the health field and in learning different health concepts and philosophies.
你关注健康，喜欢学习不同的健康理念和健康。
Mercury.
健康理念和哲学。
Right. Mercury shows our interest, our mental interest.
水星它让我们看到我们的头脑的兴趣是什么。
The 6th house is certainly the health field. It can be.
那么第6宫当然是一个健康的领域。
Right. And learning health concepts is a mixture of Sagittarius 6th house, because Sagittarius is about the philosophy, the concept.
那么喜欢学习健康理念、健康概念，这是射手座和第6宫的一个组合，因为射手座喜欢那种理念性的东西。
Imagine someone whose job was to write the policies of their company in regards to the company's treatment of health for the employees.
你想想，如果一个人他的工作就是为公司写他们的公司守则，就是关于雇员的健康问题的这个公司手册。
It'd be a very clear example of that.
政策，这个人就是水星落第6宫射手座，这可能是其中一种表达。
And then you try to live your philosophy of life in your work and your everyday routine.
你希望在你的工作中，还有在日常生活中，都能践行你的人生哲学。
Right. everyday routine. That's the 6th house.
第6宫是我们的日常生活，
But wanting to be true to your philosophy.
但是你希望你对于自己的哲学是非常的真实的。
Your work could involve teaching or instruction.
你的工作可能是涉及到教学或者是培训。
And the ethics of your workplace are very important with Mercury and Saturn in the 6th house.
水星第6宫射手座就是你的工作领域、工作中的它的那个道德准则对你来说是非常重要的。
Think about how outspoken Mercury and Sagittarius would be in the 6th house if there were violations of ethics in the workplace.
你想想看，这个水星第6宫的人，射手座的人，如果是他们的工作违反了他们的准则、道德准则，会怎么样？
This company is being dishonest.
他们会非常大胆的来说出来，直言不讳的说，这个公司它不诚实，
They are not doing what they promised.
他们没有做他们承诺要做的事儿，
Or this employee is cheating.
或者说这个雇员在撒谎。
So with Sagittarius, Sagittarius can sometimes be a little bit of the whistleblower. You know what a whistleblower is?
那个射手座的人就像有那个吹响哨子的人，他有点像那种人。
You have this phrase in Chinese, whistleblower?
Whistleblower，
Blower, yeah, whistleblower.
告密者吗？告密者。
Yeah, it's very Sagittarius. In a family, the Sagittarius child is always the one that runs to the parent and says, "Guess what so-and-so did?"
说在家里面，射手座的孩子他就总是会跑到那个父母那儿打小报告，你知道吗？谁谁谁做了点什么？
This is one of the reasons my sister hated me.
这是一个原因，我的姐姐很恨我的原因之一。
Yes, all that Sagittarius. Yes, yes.
因为我有那么多射手座。
Guess what my sister did?
你看我姐姐做了点什么？
Yes. All right. All right. Your tendency to freely express your ideas sometimes makes for challenges in the workplace. Yes, can be. See, your tendency to freely express your ideas.
你总是想要自由表达你的观点，有时候会在你的工作场合带来挑战。
And then if we look at it in terms of development, getting on the same page with your coworkers improves your mental attitude as well as office communications.
同事之间交流和同事协调一致，都能改善你的心理状态。
This means reaching an understanding with the people you work with.
这就意味着和你的同事们能够达成一致，
Okay.
一致才能够理解，能够达成互谅互解。
Okay. Venus in Capricorn in the 3rd house.
金星在摩羯座第3宫，
Your social competitiveness may have begun with sibling rivalry.
那么金星摩羯座第3宫，你的社会竞争可能始于兄弟姐妹的较量。
Think about that now.
你现在想一想这句话。
Venus is very much about our socialization, about how we learn to be social.
金星是我们的社交性，我们怎么样学会社交的？
Competition is very Capricorn.
摩羯座是竞争是摩羯座的关键词。
And the 3rd house can mean siblings.
那么第3宫是兄弟姐妹，
It could also be neighbors
甚至可能是你的邻居，
or cousins.
或者你的表兄弟、表姐妹。
Imagine someone with Venus and Capricorn in the 3rd house, and they're competing with their cousin to get a date with someone.
你想象这样一个人，他可能跟他的表兄竞争，去跟一个女孩约会。
They want to date the son of the mayor of the town.
他希望去跟那个他的市长的儿子约会。
And so they come up with a plan for this.
而且呢，他为此制定了一个计划。
Capricorn doesn't really like spontaneity.
摩羯座不喜欢这种自发性。
So they have a plan for going after this guy.
所以说他们有一个计划，如何去追求这个男人。
Because that will bring them status, because they know their cousin also likes this guy.
因为这样的话也会给他们带来地位，而且另外呢，他也知道他的表哥也在追求表妹也在追求这个人。
So they're competing.
所以说他也跟他的表姐妹竞争。
All right. you like, Venus is about what we like, you like common sense ideas.
那么金星是和我们喜欢什么相关的。那么这个人呢，他喜欢合乎常识的想法。
You can't help your keep up with the Jones tendency. This means keeping up with your neighbors. Your neighbors buy something for their house, you want to do the same thing.
那么你忍不住就想去攀比。就如果说你邻居买了什么，你就忍不住也要买个什么。
Right. Your neighbor buys a BMW, you think I'll get a BMW.
如果你的邻居买了一个 BMW 宝马，你也想买一个宝马。
You hate your neighbor's sloppy yard.
你讨厌邻居家泥泞的庭院。
That can also be a Virgo issue, by the way.
这也是一个处女座的。
But the reason it's a Capricorn issue is because Capricorn says you're affecting the status of my home because of how ugly yours looks.
这为什么是一个摩羯座的问题呢？是因为你的庭院这么的难看，所以说你这个影响了我的这种地位感，在你旁边住着。
Because you, like the last sentence says, you want your neighborhood, third house, to reflect your status.
因为就像下面一句话我们说的，希望你的邻里能够去反映你的地位，你住在什么样的地方能反映你的地位。
You want to live in the rich neighborhood or the neighborhood with status.
你希望住在那个有地位的那种富裕的街区。
No one's ever done a study on this, but what would be interesting? I'm going to challenge my students.
虽然说没有人做过研究，不过呢，你觉得我要挑战一下大家，这个会是一个非常有趣的事情。
If it was possible to find out in big cities in China like Beijing or Shanghai.
如果我们能在大城市，比方说北京、上海这样大城市去发现
，where you have lots of tall apartments.
那有很多的高建筑物。
If Capricorns prefer the higher floors.
你们看看那些摩羯座的人，他们是不是喜欢高层？
I'll bet more Capricorns live higher up than live lower in the apartment.
我可以打赌，那个摩羯座的人，他们喜欢住在高层，而不是喜欢住在低层。如果在那种高层建筑中。
That would be an interesting study, wouldn't it?
那会是一个非常有趣的一个研究。
All right. See, somebody will eventually come up with that, and we'll publish it.
也许有人去做这样的统计，我们去发表。
All right. Here's one. Everyone wants to talk about Venus and Scorpio.
所有人都想谈一谈金星在天蝎座吧。
All right. Venus and Scorpio in the 11th house.
金星在天蝎座11宫。
Ooh, there's an interesting story.
这有一个有趣的故事。
Sexual attraction may be a common undercurrent with your friends.
就是你跟朋友在一起，可能都有一个暗流，就是那种性的吸引力的暗流。
Even if you never intend to act upon it.
即便是你从来没想有意去这么做。
See, this is not Mars in Scorpio in the 11th house. This is Venus.
这不是火星在11宫天蝎座，这是金星。
Mars in Scorpio in the 11th house might be a little different.
火星在11宫天蝎座，可能他们就行动会不一样。
Right. Here, there's Venus in Scorpio feels attraction.
那么金星在天蝎座，他们感觉到那种吸引力。
And this is part of their sense of bonding with their friends.
这是他们跟他们的朋友能够形成连接的这样一种方式。
There may be a little undercurrent. There may be a little flirting, a little.
他可能去稍微调一下情，会有暗暗的这样一种情愫。
But this is just a normal expression for Venus and Scorpio.
但是这对于金星天蝎座11宫的人来说是一个正常的表达。
And it can be more subtle.
而且它是很微妙的一种表达。
But it's still felt there.
但是你还能感觉到这样。
Look at this next one. You like feeling the eyes of desire upon you in group situations.
你渴望人群中有双火辣辣的眼睛注视着你。
All right. Everyone, all my friends tell me I'm sexy. See.
我的朋友都告诉我我很性感。
You never forget friends who are there for you in a crisis.
你绝不会忘记危难中帮助过你的朋友。
This is very important, Scorpio.
这对于天蝎座非常的重要。
You're very loyal to your friends. This is very Venus and Scorpio.
你对于朋友来说非常的忠心不二。
If a boyfriend breaks up with you, or your husband is threatening to divorce you or leave you, and you have a friend who has Venus and Scorpio in the 11th, they're going to come over and be right there with you.
如果你的男朋友跟你说拜拜，或者是你的丈夫要跟你分手，你的这个金星11宫天蝎座的朋友会立刻来到你身边。
They'll be like this. They'll be like saying, "Don't worry, it's okay. Just get rid of him."
他们说，哎呀，
You'll meet someone else. I'll introduce you to someone.
别担心，你会遇到别人的，我会帮你介绍的。
I agree with you. He should die.
我同意你说的办法，他就该去死。
This is Scorpio.
这就是金星天蝎的人。
I didn't trust him to begin with.
一开始我就不信任他。
Right. All right. It's Scorpio. All right.
这是天蝎座。
But Scorpio is very. The point I'm really making, Scorpio is very supportive, actually.
我想说的其实就是说，天蝎座的人他其实特别会支持你的。
Right. You attract resourceful associates. That's nice.
那么另外呢，就是你会吸引来有很多资源的人，这是个好事儿。
You know, just the gangsters to borrow money from.
你知道从哪个黑手党那里借钱？
or the people
黑帮那里借钱。
with deep pockets.
你知道那些他们很钱很多的那些人。
You size up everyone in the group to see whom you might trust or at least control.
你会观察团体中的每一个人，判断哪些人是你可以信任的，至少你能掌控的人。
This is also just naturally part of the sexual energy of Venus and Scorpio, because they can, in the 11th house, control some of the group with that energy, just a little bit.
这也是那个金星在天蝎座的这种性的那个能量的那一部分。因为它会给这个团体贡献这一些性能量。
Right. Okay. It's a subtle seduction.
这是一个非常微妙的诱惑。
All right. Mars and Sagittarius in the 10th house.
火星在射手座第10宫。
Think about this. Mars is where we fight, isn't it?
想想这个，火星是我们去打仗的。
So here we say you are not reluctant to go to battle for what you think is right.
那火星落在第10宫射手座，你会毫不犹豫的为你心中的正义而战。
This would be especially true in terms of career, wouldn't it?
这对于职业来说特别正确。
Okay. Your enthusiasm for what you believe has always drawn attention to you.
你对自己的信仰的狂热会让你非常引人注目。
Yes, because even Mars and Sag, as a young person, even as a student, is going to be the one who stands up in class and would argue or dispute something if it's wrong.
火星在射手座第10宫，他哪怕是个年轻的学生的时候，他也会站起来跟老师争辩，如果他认为老师说的不对的话。
Mars and Sagittarius might challenge the teacher in the 10th house.
火星10宫射手座的人可能会挑战老师。
Your actions, Mars, rarely escape notice, 10th house, which is generally fine with you.
那么你的行为总是为你吸引来更多的目光，不过通常你并不介意。
Right. Remember, wherever the planets are is what we need.
你知道火星不论坐在哪，那都是我们所需要的。
Mars in the 10th house needs attention.
火星在10宫需要关注。
And it gets attention.
而且他们也就会得到关注。
In a riot, it's the first one the police will go after.
那有时候呢，他就是那个警察第一个去追捕的人。
Because they're the ones that's the most visible going.
因为他一眼就出现在警察的视野中。
Right.
特别容易看到，太显眼了。
And they're the ones the camera catches going like this.
他们就好像那个摄像头镜头一下子就会捕捉到他们。
And then the one the camera catches running really fast.
然后那个摄像头就看到他们，刚开始看到他们在抗议，然后就看见他们在逃跑了。
With the police running behind.
警察在背后追他们。
All right. Or the military.
或者是军队在后面追他们。
All right. I was thinking of images from Egypt a few years ago. You know.
我在想那个埃及几年前那个埃及的那个事儿。
All right. And of course, Mars and Sag in the 10th house might be good for a comedian.
当然，火星10宫射手座对于一个喜剧演员来说是非常棒的。
Because you don't mind making a bit of a fool out of yourself.
因为你不介意让自己出丑。
If it accomplishes your objectives.
因为这样会实现你的目标。
There's a little bit of Sagittarius is a fire sign.
射手座是一个火象星座。
Fire signs are more willing to take risks to some extent.
火象星座呢更愿意去冒险，从某种意义上来说，某种程度上来说。
Right. And accomplishment and objectives are the 10th house.
那么时宫的人呢，他希望能够达成他的目标。
This could be good even for public relations if you're trying to draw attention to something.
这对于公共关系来说也是很好的，如果你想要吸引关注的话。
This might be the salesman who is very obvious.
这可能是那个非常明显的那个销售员。
He walks into the room.
他一下就走进了那个房间。
Hello, everyone.
大家好。
大家好。Wait till I show you what I have today.
我来让你们看看我今天有什么。
Right. And he cracks a joke.
然后他就开始讲笑话。
And he laughs.
然后他就开始大笑。
And a few others laugh.
有其他几个人也开始笑。
This is Mars and Sag in the 10th house.
这就是火星在射手座时宫。
Right. Okay. Mars and Taurus in the 7th house.
火星在金牛座第7宫。
You've probably had your share of drawn-out battles with your significant others.
你可能会跟对你很重要的人共同面临一场持久战。
It's part of the learning experience.
这是一个学习的经历。
You tend to attract partners as stubborn as yourself. Yes.
你会吸引来跟你一样固执倔强的伴侣。
I can't tell you how many clients I've had who've said with this combination, who've said exactly that.
那么我有很多的客户，他们有这样一个配置，他们都说了这样同样的话。
My husband is so stubborn.
我的老公这么的固执。
And they got Mars and it's their Mars in Taurus in the 7th house. They're projecting it.
实际上这是他们自己的火星落在了第7宫金牛座，他们把这个投射出去了。
But you're attracted to strong individuals.
但是你会被那些强壮的人所吸引。
You've probably learned how to keep money issues from perpetuating strife in your marriage because it can.
你或许已经学到了如何处理婚姻中的金钱问题，不至于让它成为你们之间无休止争吵的根源。
You gradually become agitated if you feel you're being rushed in a relationship.
如果你觉得感情进展太快的话，你会感觉到不安。
Remember the interesting thing about Taurus. Taurus may seem calm, seem passive.
你要知道，金牛座有一个非常有趣的特点，他们看起来好像很平静，看起来很被动。
But push a Taurus, you get resistance.
但是如果是你催这个金牛座的人的话呢，你会感觉到他们的抗拒。
They cannot be hurried.
你不可能催促他们。
It's very important.
这是非常重要的。
If you've got a triple Taurus in front of you in line, you're not going to be able to get around them.
如果你在排队的时候，你前面有一个3倍的金牛座的人站在你前面的话，你绕不过他的。
Right. Especially trying to get on the subway.
特别是如果你要上地铁的话。
All right. And this is true. You want to take your time to get to really know the other person, to see if the relationship is really worth doing something about it.
你想要花时间慢慢去真正了解一个人，看看这段感情是否值得进一步付出。
Okay, we'll respond to a question here.
这位同学问，如果木星在巨蟹座时宫又会怎样？
Let's think about that. This is a good question.
这是一个好问题，大家想一想。
Jupiter in Cancer in the 10th house.
木星在巨蟹座时宫。
What kind of career do you think of with Jupiter in Cancer in the 10th house? Could be have a restaurant, yes. What else?
他可能在什么样的职业中呢？可能他有一个餐馆，或者是一个演员。
I don't know.
兰多说的第二个不一定。
Let's think of the principles involved.
我们想一想这个组合涉及到哪些原则吧。
Cancer is a sign associated with nurturing.
巨蟹座是和滋养相关的星座。
We know that can fit the food business, but it might also fit things that have to do with child's care.
我们知道这符合那个餐馆业，但是呢，同时也对于那比方说儿童养护啊这些。
Early education.
早期教育，早教。
So it could be someone's career involves somehow taking care of children in some way.
这个人的职业可能会就是照顾小孩儿。
Imagine the principal of a school having Jupiter in Cancer in the 10th house.
你想想这个学校的他们的原则，如果是他的校长如果是木星落在10宫巨蟹座。
Now, I know what you were thinking when you said actor. You were thinking Jupiter's big, 10th house is show.
我知道这位同学在说演员的时候，你可能是在想木星很大，10宫呢又是要表现出来在众人面前。
And that's possible.
这是可能的。
Cancer is emotional.
巨蟹座是那种情绪化的。
So the need to show emotions in a big way in public.
所以说他有这样的需求，想把他的情绪用一种很大的方式在公众面前展现。
But I would say Cancer can also be a little shy. So here we have Cancer, a somewhat moody, shy sign in the 10th house of visibility.
那么但是呢，我也要说那个巨蟹座它是比较羞涩的，所以说这样的巨蟹座呢，在他的这种情绪化的又在公众面前。
I think Cancer is a little more comfortable in roles that are natural for it.
我觉得巨蟹座的人呢，他对于他那个天生的那种性格的那样这个角色本色表演可能是更好。
Which can mean playing some kind of parental roles professionally, in nurturing.
也就是说，他去扮演那些父母的角色，或者是为人父母的角色，或者是滋养他人的角色。
It could be someone who owns or runs a hotel chain that's also famous for their restaurant.
可能这个人呢是他有一个连锁酒店，而且呢他的宾馆也很有名，
Yeah, the best.
饭店也很有名。
The best Sichuan wings or something.
就是我们这个酒店有最好的那个四川菜。
Yes. All right. Okay. At our famous hotel. All right.
Someone said, will expensive of Jupiter offset some of the shyness of the Cancer?
A little.
这位同学问，木星的这种扩张性是否会抵消一些巨蟹座的羞涩呢？老师说会有一点点，不过它还是会有巨蟹的那一面。
Let me give you an example.
给大家一个例子。
Maybe he would be the whole story on Jupiter and Cancer in the 10th house.
我给大家一个整个的这样一个故事吧，木星在巨蟹座第10宫的故事。
They came from a family that owned a hotel chain. 他出生于一个那个连锁酒店、连锁宾馆的这样一个家庭。 And they became temporarily interested in acting.
他们可能有一段時間對於表演有些感興趣。
But ended up being in one film where they played someone in a big family movie.
那么可能他最後呢，在一個電影裡面扮演了一個家族電影的這樣一個角色。
But then they found they didn't really like.
家庭電影的角色。
They didn't really like Hollywood.
然後他發現他們不喜歡好萊塢。
And so they retired after that one film.
所以說他拍了一部電影以後就退休了。
And opened up a chain of restaurants.
然後他就又開了一個連鎖的餐廳。
And then had a big family.
然後呢，他有了一個很大的家庭。
You see, this would be the whole story.
這就是可能木星在巨蟹座10宮的這個他的整個的人生故事。
Okay. Just let your mind create from the symbol.
你的頭腦要從這些象徵這個裡面去創造。
You'll be amazed how many times the person will tell you that that's exactly what they do.
有時候你會覺得這個人，你對他的解讀正好是他們所做的事情，那時候會非常驚喜。
And all you were doing was just thinking logically, being creative with your logic.
實際上你所做的不過是根據這些邏輯更有創意的來解讀。
Remember, this is astrologic.
要記得這是占星學的意思，就是星的邏輯。
But you must be creative with your logic.
但是呢，這些邏輯你必須是很有創意的。
Looks like we might have a good question there.
So Jupiter, basically all those adjectives such as actively or expansive.
It's still true.
就木星很多是形容詞，比如積極的、擴張的等等。
Certainly Jupiter in the 10th will attract attention. All right, just for a few minutes.
木星在需要安静一点哈。木星在10宫，木星在10宫
Right.
需要那种它会吸引来关注。
The 10th house is always what's more high profile, what's visible. It's hard to hide what's in the 10th house.
10宫是那种非常高调的宫位啊，你很难去，如果10宫很多星，你很难隐藏。
Because it's more exposed.
因为它是能够全要展现出来的，被公众看到的部分。
You've got whatever you've got in the 10th house. It's better to be as open book about it as you can.
不管是你10宫有什么样的行星，最好对于这个行星相关的事情，你最好像一本敞开的书一样。
Imagine that would be challenging for someone who had, say, 3 planets in Scorpio in the 10th house.
你想想，如果这个人他3颗行星都在天蝎座10宫，这对他是多大的一个挑战？
Trying to control how they're seen. Okay?
他希望能控制，就是别人的眼里他是什么样。
Right. Or they might. There was a famous general who had the sun in Scorpio in the 10th house.
有一个非常有名的将军，他的太阳就在天蝎座10宫。
His name was Erwin Rommel.
他的名字就 Erwin Rommel。
He was a German Nazi general.
他是一个德国纳粹的将军。
He was famous.
但是他非常有名。
He was called the Desert Fox.
就是那个隆美尔，沙漠之狐。
Right. And he also famously opposed Hitler near the end of the war and was forced to commit suicide to save his family.
而且呢，他在战争快要结束的时候，他是反对希特勒的，而且这个也很著名，这个故事。然后最后呢，为了他的家人，他不得不自杀了。
Scorpio sun in 10th house.
10宫天蝎座10宫，不是天蝎座太阳天蝎座10宫。
Well known for all these Scorpio things, control.
他是对这个天蝎座的这些他所做的这些事儿呢，他是非常著名的。
But for
大家都知道这些事。
But for sacrificing this, suicide.
而且他是最后也是自杀了啊。
Right. Because he was so famous
因为
that his opposition to Hitler was seen as a huge threat.
因为他太有名了，所以说他反对那个希特勒呢，对希特勒是一个巨大的威胁。
And so the Nazis came to him and said, if you will take your own life, we'll spare your family.
所以说后来纳粹就跟他讲，如果是你自杀呢，我们就会放过你的家人。
So see, that's where something is well known that you've done of a Scorpio nature. See?
所以说这是一个非常大家天下皆知的，就是你做了一个天蝎座的性质的事情。
He was also known as, before that, as a very resourceful Scorpio general in charge. See, 10th house.
而且他非常有名啊，他是一个为他的足智多谋而著名的这样一个将军。他是个 resourceful， 他足智多谋，是天蝎座，然后他是一个掌管的第10宫。
In fact, they say the only reason he was defeated in North Africa by the Allies in any battle was because he ran out of oil. He ran out of petroleum for his tanks.
就后来别人说，他最后在北非被盟军打败的唯一的原因就是说他没有油了。
See, resources.
就是说没有油了。
Right. He ran out of resources.
他油用光了。
If he had been able to keep all of his resources, he would have kept winning 10th house.
如果他能够一直有这些资源的话，他可能会一直赢10宫。
Because he was defeating the French, the English, and the Americans.
因为他打败了法国人、英国人、美国人。
Right. He ran out of fuel.
最后呢，他没油了。
It's very Scorpio.
非常的天蝎座。
Okay. All right. We have actually reached 4 minutes past the end of our class, but I'll do a couple more here since it's our last class. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Do we have some over here? Shall I just grab one from the list here? Which of these do you want to discuss?
大家看一看下面这个例子，因为我们时间也到了哈。不过老师说这是最后一节课了，所以我们再讲几分钟。大家觉得哪一个你们更有兴趣来听一下呢？
Saturn and Gemini in the 12th? That one? Okay, good. Yeah, we love the 12th house, don't we?
土星在12宫双子座。
Such a complicated house.
我们喜欢12宫，这是非常复杂的宫位。
Yes. Something I want to share something with you about 12th house and Pisces.
我想跟大家分享一下12宫和双鱼座的一些特
Something
点。
my teacher said to me many years ago.
我的老师在很多年前这样跟我讲，
She said, confusion is a good place to hide.
他说迷惑是一个很好的藏身之处。
We can say, mihula,
我们可能说我迷糊了，
well, mihula. And because we can hide in that confusion.
因为我们可能会就是我们躲藏在这个迷惑之中。
Why are we hiding?
为什么我们要躲藏呢？
Because we're sensitive.
因为我们非常的敏感，
And we have sensitive issues that we are trying to hide.
因为我们有一些非常敏感的事情，我们想藏起来、隐藏起来。
And we hide. It gets complicated.
我们隐藏啊，最后就变得非常复杂了。
The 12th house is very evasive because of the sensitivity. Hide. More defenses.
那么12宫呢是非常让人逃避的这样一个特征，因为你老是藏，最后就一层层的那个防御就建立了起来，它就变得越来越复杂了。
There's so many layers to the 12th house.
12宫有这么多的层次，
But astrology is very helpful.
但是呢，占星学是非常有用的。
You can look at your 12th house and begin to get to the bottom of some of the most sensitive issues that you have.
你可以看你的12宫，然后看一看你最敏感的那些事的它的核心是什么，根源是什么。
Right. If you're a Leo rising and you have Cancer in the 12th house,
如果你的上升是狮座，那你的12宫就是巨蟹座。
you are not going to make me cry.
你不可能让我哭。
I'm too proud.
我太骄傲
I
了，
will not cry.
我绝对不会哭。
Say, Leo on the ascendant, but Cancer's in the 12th. I want to cry.
这个上升是狮子座，但是巨蟹座是在12宫的。
Right. So look at the 12th house to find, again, that's the really sensitive issue.
所以说，看看12宫，看看那个特别敏感的那个议题，
Think about that. It's very interesting, isn't it?
非常有趣，是吧？
Virgo rising has Leo in the 12th.
那么上升是处女座，那么12宫是狮子座。
I don't want you to notice me.
我不想让你那个注意到我，
Don't notice me.
别关注我，
I'm just doing my work.
我只不过在做我的工作而已。
Everyone takes me for granted.
每个人都把我当做理所当
I
然，
do a perfect job.
我做了一个完美的工作，
No one ever notices.
没人注意到这个。
I wish somebody would notice me.
我希望有人能够注意到我。
This is Leo in the 12th.
这是狮子座在12宫，
It's what's underneath Virgo rising.
这是在处女座之下的那个东西。
The 12th house tells you a lot.
12宫可以告诉你很
Tells you
多
the，most sensitive thing
告诉你最敏感的事情，
that's underneath the mask.
它是在你的面具之下的东西。
See, it's very interesting.
非常有趣。
You can have lots of fun with the 12th house.
12宫大家可以
All right.
来
Saturn
了一下。
in Gemini in the 12th house.
土星在双子座12宫，
You fear your ideas will be overlooked.
你害怕你的那些想法会被漏过、
You're
忽视或者忽视。
overlooked, ignored, neglected 12th house.
你害怕就是忽视，这是12宫。
Ideas, this is certainly Gemini,
双子座是观点，
and Saturn can relate to our fear.
土星是和我们的恐惧联系在一起。
You are concerned, perhaps, about how the media influences everyone in the world.
你可能关心媒体影响大众的方式，
You could say, the media is so irresponsible.
你可能说这些媒体太不负责任了，
See, Saturn is about responsibility.
因为土星是关于责任的。
The media should be accountable, responsible.
这个媒体应该是负责任的。
Right. You feel an obligation, Saturn, to improve communications, Gemini, in the world.
你觉得自己有责任促进世界的交流。
You might teach literacy to underprivileged members of society.
你可能会帮助给那些社会底层的民众，教他们读写。
Think of what a high expression of Saturn and Gemini in the 12th house that is.
你想想，这是一个多么高的层面的土星在12宫射手座的双子座的表达。
It's a sense of obligation to the world. See, Saturn in the 12th.
土星在12宫，他能感觉到对世界的责任。
But teaching underprivileged members of society how to read.
但 但是他去教那些社会底层的民众读写。
How about this last? You're serious, Saturn, see, about listening to those in society whose ideas are often ignored.
你真诚的，这个普星，倾听那些常常被社会所忽视的人的想法。
Okay. Were there any other questions over here?
Pluto 小船。
Pluto on the 12th?
这位同学问，冥王星在12宫会怎样呢？
Well, certainly you could say meditation has a transforming effect.
当然，冥王星在12宫可以说，你如果是冥想的话，可以转化你的这样一个效果，影响力对你来说。
Is to feel the power of the masses sometimes.
实际上，有时候是你要感觉到这个民众的力量。
If you have Pluto in the 12th house,
如果你的12宫有冥王星，
and when you learn aspects, because I know all of you are going to be taking the EAC course,
如果你去学项目的话，当然我知道大家都会去学中介课哈。
that's my not so subtle commercial.
这是我不那么微妙的那个广告。
But if you have Pluto in the 12th house and it is aspected to a personal planet,
但是如果你的冥王星落在12宫，和一个个人行星有相位，
you may derive power from your sense of the masses, of the collective. I'm doing this for reasons that have to do with the world.
你可能会从那个民众那里面获得那个力量，也就是说，因为你是在为这个世界做一些事情，你从这个方面就会获得一些力量。
What about the Pluto in 9th house? Would this person be far away from home for the entire life?
Not necessarily.
冥王星在第9宫什么意思呢？这个人会一生都是远离家庭吗？
Pluto in the 9th house is about the power of ideas,
冥王星在第9宫，它意味着观念的力量，
the power of belief.
你的信仰的力量。
If you believe something, you can transform it.
如果你信仰一个什么事情，你就可以转化。
There's a healthy side of Pluto in the 9th, and there's an unhealthy side.
这是冥王星9宫的健康的表达，当然冥王星9宫也有不健康的表达。
The powerful side of Pluto in a healthy way could be the teacher who transforms their students.
一个健康的表达，冥王星在第9宫，比如说这个老师转化了他的学生。
The negative side could be the ideologue who tries to control others based upon their beliefs.
那么那个负面的表达呢，他可能想去控制别人的信仰、信念，这样一个。
Right. All right. So I want you to think about how to use these combinations
我希望大家去想想如何应用这些组合，
and keep experimenting with them.
而且不断地要去练实践。
But remember, there's really only 12 notes.
不过你一定要记得，其实只有12个音符，
Just 12.
只有12个。
Think of all the different songs there are.
你想想看，那个歌曲有那么多的歌曲，
So many millions of songs,
那么多成千上百万的这种歌曲，
all with 12 notes.
其实也只有12个音符。
Yes. How about that?
多棒啊！
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to leave you with that thought.
所以说我们就到此停止。
And I'll see all of
大
you
家去
again
想一想这个。
on the 30th of April.
4月30号，我们再见。拜拜。
拜拜。再见。Wave to